Alrighty. The first part of graphing I'm going to call, and you need to write all this down because this is the second part. What I handed out is the second part. First part is very important. You might want to get your highlighters out also. So there are some places that I highlight some stuff. All right, what is graphing? Well, the first graphing that you ever done in mathematics, or ever did in mathematics, was on a number line. Remember this? 0, -1, -2, 1, 2. And you might have put a circle here, like this, a closed circle, and then a closed circle here, and then you shaded in the area from 1 to -1, -1 to 1. And some of you remember doing that from the last section. Some of you remember it back in pre-algebra. That's a one-dimensional graph. One-dimensional. Length, that's it. Or horizontal, that's it. Now we're going to add another dimension to it. Here's your number line that you did back in 6.5. I'm going to highlight, you don't have to highlight this. This is not what I'm talking about, highlighting. This is what you learned back in 6.5 right here. 6.4. That's that number line right here. Now we're going to add this number line right here. And somebody tell me what that number line's called.
Y.
That's your y-axis. And your old number line that you learned back in 6.5 is called the x-axis. Infinity is still here. This is negative infinity. This is positive infinity. This is positive infinity. And this is negative infinity in relation to x and y. These are your x values. These are your y values. Together, this makes up the Cartesian coordinate system. That's just a 25-cent word for x and y. Now, these values are your x values, negative x values, y values, and negative y values. Which way do we read?
Left or right?
So what comes first in the alphabet, x or y?
X.
Well, x comes first with your coordinates. This is called a coordinate. It's called an ordered pair. It's called x and y. It's called a point. It's called several different things. But what is it? It's your coordinate in the x-axis and the y-axis. So if I have a point 2 and 5 right here, that point is 2 in the x direction and 5 in the y direction. Now, again, most of this is reviewed. Most of you have had pre-algebra and algebra 1, so most of it's reviewed. Some of it is new. I don't know. Depends on what you've had. This is your first quadrant. This is your second quadrant. This is your third quadrant. And this is your fourth quadrant. All your x values in the first quadrant are both what? Both positive. Positive, negative. Negative, negative. I'm sorry. I did the wrong way. Negative, positive. Negative, positive, negative, negative, and positive, negative. The middle, where the two lines intersect, is the coordinate 0, 0, which represents what we call the what? Origin. Was that 6.5 or 6.6? Which one was the number line? 6. And this is 6.7. Now, when you have 2 points on the number line, let's go with that 2. And 5, 2. If you connect those 2 points, what does that call? A line, right? Yes, Hubert, that's called a line. Linear means that they all line up together. There's no zigzags. Now, there's 2 things I can tell you about this line. 2 things we want from this line. One is the slope. And 2 is the equation. And we're not talking about graphing. Graphing is the second part. We're talking about finding information from a line. Now, in order to find the slope in the equation, we have to talk about what a general form of a line is, what the equation is, what does it look like. All right? So we'll come back to these 2 points later. I'm going to turn over to the next page and we're going to talk about slope and the equation. I'm going to start with the equation first, and then we'll talk about how to find it later. The general or basic, whatever, equation for a line y equals mx plus b. And y'all seen this before. And I'm going to highlight the y. This is what you need to highlight. I'm going to highlight the y yellow, and you can do what you want. The M green, the X blue, and the B red. All right, so there's my 4 colors, and you can do what you want to. I'm going to go y is equal to input values. I'm sorry, output values. That's the x. Oh man, let me just change that. Change this to x. Sorry. Change this to x, so I don't have to rewrite the whole thing. X is equal to the input values. What is y? Output values. And we'll see this later. You'll see what I'm talking about later. The only reason I'm showing you this is for these two guys right here. M is what we call slope, and B is called the y-intercept. Okay? Huh? Oh, shoot. I can't even see. X is blue. Yellow. M is green. And B is red. Now, X and Y, that's not a big deal because that's your input and output. All right? So we're not going to worry about these two. Okay? So just kind of smart through those. You don't have to. But just we're not going to worry about those because those take care of themselves. The slope is what we want to focus on because there's three ways to find the slope. One is to find it. And you do that by solving for y. And if you find y by itself, then you have m right here. You just find it. Another way is to look at a graph and see the slope. Your vertical over your horizontal, and count the blocks. So you can see it by observing it on a graph. And then the third way is to calculate it using a formula. And the formula for slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. I'm going to rewrite it. Okay, so just hold on. I'll do it in just a second. I'll rewrite it on the next page. So, if I want to find my slope, I solve my equation for y and look in the what position? Right in front of the x. If I want to graph it, if I want to see it with a graph, then I have a graph and I have a line and I count the number of verticals boxes over the what? The number of horizontals, and that is my slope. Or I can calculate it. We're going to talk about that on the next page. So to calculate slope, you use the formula. M is equal to delta y over delta x. You might see it written like this. This is a fancy way of writing it. The change in y over the change of x. But don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. This is the actual formula. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. That's the formula right there you need to memorize. That means the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. Now, when are you going to be calculating the slope? You calculate the slope when you're given 2 points, or you're given a graph with 2 points. In other words, there'll be a graph with a line on it, and there'll be 2 green points on it. Or you're just given a graph. And no blocks. You're just given a graph, and you find 2 points, and they give you, well, they give you a way to find the points somehow, some way. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a few minutes. All right, so let's take those points we were talking about. I think the first one was 2, 5, and 5, 2. Well, which way do we read? So this is your first what? Your first X. This is your first what? Y. What is this? Second X. Second Y. Simple as that. Plug and what? Plug and chug. So M is equal to parentheses minus parentheses over parentheses minus parentheses. I always put in parentheses whenever I'm doing math, whenever I'm plugging and chugging. Some of y'all don't need it. I've got 3 degrees and I need it, but some of y'all don't need it. So don't cry when you do a careless mistake. 2 minus what? Over 5 minus what? And what's 2 minus 5? And what's 5 minus 2? So your answer is -1. Your slope of that line that we saw a while ago was -1. All right, we just calculated the slope. Now, you may be given like this. Now, that's one type problem. That's the one that you're going to see the most of. This one right here. On the test, that's what you'll see. They'll ask you, find the slope right there of those 2 points. And then you just do that. Here's the other one. I'm not going to do it because we just did it. Right there. That's the other type problem you'll see. Instead of black dots, I think y'all's are green on the problems in the homework. I think they're green. But they'll give you 2 points and they're distinctive on the line. There'll be green points. And you pick those 2 points. And which way do we read?
Left to right.
So that's your first point. And that's your second point. It doesn't matter how you plug them in as long as you're consistent. But why all of a sudden you're going to start reading from right to left? We read from left to right. Now the only other type problem is when they give you a grid. I'll show you what I'm talking about. They give you a grid like that, and they give you a X and Y axis. And then they give you a line, and that line looks like that. Well, it wasn't supposed to do that. It wasn't supposed to move right at the last second. Okay, that's close enough. Theirs will be more accurate. They'll give you this, and they'll say, find the slope. What are you looking for? You're looking for 2 good points. There's one right there. Why is that a good point? No, not really. I could pick another point in the middle of the line. But why am I picking this one? It's right at the corner of 2 what? It's right at the corner of 2 boxes. Why do I not want to pick a point like this one? Because it'd be a fraction, yes. So that's a good point. And the reason I say not an endpoint is because this line can keep on what? Going. So the reason I'm picking that one is because, not that it's an endpoint, that's a good answer, but I'm picking it because it's at the corner of 2 boxes, or 4 boxes. All right, where's another good point? Well, all these are not at the corner, but there's a point right there. It's crossing the what? Y-axis at a corner. That's a good point. And if it was more accurate, I think you'd see that, I don't know, that would be a good point right there because this one's a little bit lower. It's supposed to be right there. So I'm going to say that's a good point too because it's supposed to be at that corner. So you could pick 2 of any of these points. Now, if you wanted to try to pick some of these points, you wouldn't get the right answer. You would get close, but you wouldn't get the right answer. Because this point right here, that's a fraction. That point's a fraction. That point's a fraction. So you want to find what? Corner points is what you want to find. And I can take this one right here. Let's do this one. I mean, you don't have to write it down, but I'm going to take this point, which would be 1, 2, 3, -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. -4 and +8. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 0, comma 3. Why am I picking this point instead of this point? Because it has what in it? 0, and 0 is pretty easy to what? Subtract. So, this is x of 1, this is y sub 1, this is x of 2, y sub 2. So m is equal to parentheses minus parentheses over parentheses minus parentheses. 3 minus 8 over what? 0 minus what? And that's where students that don't use the parentheses, that's where they get messed up. 3 minus 8 is what? -5. 0 plus 4 is 4. The answer is -5/4. Now what about the other one, Hubert? You said find this is calculate. I've just shown you how to calculate. The 3 problems. 1, they give you a line, but they don't give you any points. 2, they give you a line, but they tell you what points to use by painting them green. And then 3 is to calculate, and that's given 2 points without a graph to calculate. Well, what about find? Find the slope. Well, that's pretty simple. 2x plus 3y is equal to 6. Solve for y. Do that. Get y by itself. I want to know where my car keys are. All right, what do we do with the 2x? Subtract it. Move it over to the other side by subtracting it. So that's 3y is equal to -2x plus 6. And then do what? Divide by 3. So y is equal to -2/3 x plus what? 2. what is my slope? Negative 2/3 because it's in the M spot. And that's how you find the slope. You didn't calculate it because you didn't do any math to generate the slope. All you did was you found it in the equation. So that's the first thing that I'm going to ask you on the test is find or calculate the slope. That's the first thing I'm going to ask you. And you find it by solving for y, and you calculate it by getting 2 what?
2 points.
Points. 2 points. You can get 2 points, you can calculate the slope. The second thing I wanted you to be able to do is find the what? Equation. Now when you see the words find an equation or find the equation, you're going to use the point, slope, equation. Point slope equation is y sub 2, y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. Now you want to highlight that because that's important, just like the slope equation is. And that's called the point slope equation. Now why do you think they call it the point slope equation? Because you use when given a point and a what? Yep. It's called the point slope equation because you use it when you're given a point and a what? Slope. Now there's 3 type problems that you're going to have when they're asking you to find the equation. The one problem is graphically give 2 points. Meaning you have a line, and they give you a point here and a point there. And they're going to ask you to find the equation. 2, algebraically, that's spelled right, G-R, right?
G-R-A-C-H.
I can't spell today. Let me just respell it. How about that? How about that? Is that better? Algebraically given 2 points. 2, 3, 8, 5. In other words, they just give you 2 points. And the easiest one is the third one. Given a point and a what? Slope. The third one is the easiest because all you got to do is plug and chug. The first 2, you got to find what from the points. Slope, and then you have a point and a slope to put into a point slope equation. This one, you have a point and a what? Slope. These, you don't have what? You don't have slope. So these are the ones that you got to put an extra step in. this one's the easiest because it's already given. So we're going to do one like, doesn't matter because it's the same one, just this is a graphic. This is a graphic representation of this. So it's the same process. So let's go ahead and try one. I'm just going to make one up. Let's go with, and I'll just put it like this. 2, 4, and negative 4, 2. Or negative 4, comma 2, 2, comma 4. See, they're going to be written like this, or it's going to be written like this. Either way, you've got to calculate the slope first. So number 1, calculate slope first. Two. We're going to go ahead and calculate slope, I'm sorry. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say 4, negative 4, 2, and 2, comma 4. And this is x of 1, y sub 1, this is x of 2, y sub 2. And I'm going to go m is equal to y sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x of 2 minus x of 1, which is equal to parentheses minus parentheses over parentheses minus parentheses. 4 minus 2 over 2 minus a negative 4. And what's 4 minus 2? 2. And what's 2 plus 4? So you should get 1/3. So now, part 2, I have a point. Which one am I going to pick? Well, why did I pick 2 and 4? And the slope is equal to what? 1/3. Why did I pick 2 and 4? Why didn't I pick negative 4 and 2? How many of you, when you get cut, let's say you cut yourself with a knife, how many of you are going to pour salt on that cut? Why? It hurts. Why are you going to pick the 2 and the 4 versus the negative 4 and the 2? Why not a negative? What does that have to do with anything? More prone to make a careless mistake with a negative or a fraction versus a whole number. What's that got to do with pouring salt on a cut? Huh? No, yeah, it's more pain. Why would you pick negative 4 and 2 when you've got 2 and 4 right here? Don't pour salt on the wound. That's more pain. All right, so let me do this real quick. I don't want to turn to the next page. All right. So, here we go. This is x of 1. Oops. This is x of 1. This is y sub 1. Huh? What's the point slope equation? Y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. So we're going to plug in what? Y minus parentheses equals parentheses times x minus parentheses. And what goes in the y sub 1 spot? What goes in the M spot?
1/3.
And what goes in the X spot?
-8.
2. And now we're just going to solve. So y minus 4 is equal to 1/3 x minus 2/3. All right, now this next step, I'm not going to explain how I did it. You've got to figure it out. Y is equal to 1/3 x minus 2/3 plus 12/3. Don't ask me how I got it, because I'm not going to tell you. You've got to figure it out. Because I know somebody, I can't figure it out. Well, ask somebody. Don't ask me, because I'm not going to repeat myself. I've already taught you how to do that. So, my final answer, the equation for this line is y is equal to 1/3 x minus 2 plus 12 is what? 10/3. And that is the equation for this line. Y is equal to 1/3 x plus 10/3, and you can put decimals in there if you want to. Y is equal to 0.33x plus 3.33. Where did the 12/3 come from? Nope. I changed the -4 over 1 into 12 over 3 because I had to have a what? Common what? Denominator. That you learned back in chapter 1, or whatever chapter we started on. And that's how you find an equation. What if you're given a point and a slope? Do you have to find a slope? No. You just start from here. Point and a slope. You just slope each other. All right? A couple of other rules that you need to remember about lines. If y is equal to a number, I'm not talking about y is equal to 2x plus 3. I'm talking about y is equal to 4. Just y is equal to 4. Parallel to the x-axis. Now, if something is parallel to the x-axis, what kind of a line is it? Is it a vertical line or a horizontal line? It's a horizontal line. And a horizontal line, the slope is equal to 0. Hubert, what are you talking about? Well, examples. Y is equal to 2. You plot y is equal to 2. Plot y is equal to 2. And it's parallel to what? X-axis. That's y is equal to 2. What about y is equal to -1/2? No. Plot y is equal to -1/2. There's 1, 2, -1/2 is right there. What kind of line is it? Horizontal. Because it's parallel to the x-axis. When y is equal to a number, no x's, no anything, just y is equal to 5. Y is equal to 1/2. You just plot the point and you draw a horizontal line. It's as simple as that. Don't make it hard. Don't reinvent the wheel. Well, what about when x is equal to a number? Well, let me just make this smaller so people can still copy it. When x is equal to a number, what do you think it's parallel to? Okay, let's go back up here. If y is equal to a number, it's parallel to x. If x is equal to a number, it's parallel to the y-axis. So what kind of line is it? Vertical line. Slope is undefined, or does not exist, or can't happen, or something, whatever you want to put. X is equal to 4. One, two, three, 4. And what I draw? Vertical line. X is equal to 1/2. One, two. X is equal to 1/2. Right here. And it's a vertical line. And that's how you do vertical and horizontal lines. Take your highlighter right now and highlight that and highlight that, because you're going to be asked that either on homework or questions on the test. They're going to say, what is the slope of this line? And they're going to say y is equal to 4. And you say y is equal, that's slope is 0. I'm sorry. Negative 1/2. Thank you. Huh? Does not exist. I'm supposed to have a heart attack. I'm going to throw your phone away. I'm supposed to have a heart attack. Let's see. There's one more rule about lines. I want you to write it down. We're probably going to go over it in the next class before I go into the graphing. But, and it is, if m sub 1 is equal to m sub 2, meaning the slopes are equal. In other words, if you look at two equations and the slopes are equal, then you have parallel lines. If m sub 1 times m sub 2 is equal to negative 1, in other words, if you take the slope of those two equations and you multiply them together and you get a negative 1, then they are perpendicular. Multiply the slopes and get negative 1, then you have perpendicular lines. So what do you do to actually do these problems? And don't worry, we're going to go over these a good bit because y'all want to ask questions. 1. Make sure both equations have y by what? By itself. In other words, solve for y. Compare slopes. When you compare the slopes, you apply these two rules and see which one it is. It's either going to be parallel, perpendicular, or what? Neither. Now, I'll give you an example. 2x plus 3y is equal to 6. And y is equal to 3/2 x plus 2. Determine whether the two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So what do you do? Huh? No, there's nothing to plug and chug. Oh, you're thinking of substitution. No. Get y by itself. Is this y by itself? Then if it ain't broke, leave it alone. It's fine. What about this one? We got to solve it. So, 3y is equal to negative 2x plus what? 6. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. Y is equal to negative 2/3 x plus 2. Somebody tell me what my m is here. This is my first m because we read from left to right. This is our first equation. This is our second equation. What's m sub 1? What is our m here? Negative what? 2/3, Hubert. That's right, class. Here we don't do anything because we just say what is m sub 2. What is m sub 2 here? 3/2, Hubert. That's right, class. Now look at these two. Are they equal? No, Hubert. That's right, class. Okay, if they're not equal, then they're not what? Parallel. So take parallel out. They're not parallel. What else? What if you multiply them together? What do you get? Huh? Negative 1. If you multiply them together and they're negative, you get negative 1. What is it? Perpendicular. So these two lines are perpendicular to each other. And that's how you do it. And it's either going to be parallel, perpendicular, or what? Neither. Question on that? Now we have just went through the first part of graphing. The first part of graphing is called rules and properties of graphing. Now what we're going to do Wednesday is we're going to learn how to graph. Alright, today you just learned the algebra. You learned how to find the slope, you learned how to calculate the slope, you learned how to find an equation, you learned the rules and properties of graphing. Now you're going to learn, Wednesday, you're going to learn the methods of graphing, which include that handout. And we will go over those 3 methods of graphing Wednesday. You should be, did I upload a test yet for y'all? Huh? I think we're going to do that. I'll do that sometime today or tomorrow. And the homework will be due probably tonight on 6.1 through 6.5 or 6.6? 6.6. I'm not saying you need to start on graphing right now. You can give it a day or two, or at least till Wednesday. But I will have a test posted by Wednesday on 6.1 through 6.6. And we'll go over questions.
What are you supposed to do?
Say again?
Supposed to test today?
Probably today or tomorrow. 6.1 through 6.6. I break it up into 2 tests. And this is the second test in Unit 2. All right, let me get the roll because I got to make sure everybody's here, make the bureaucrats happy.